Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. My name's Hannah, and on this channel I post a lot of anti-MLM content. Linked right here for you is my big anti-MLM playlist. There's over 100 anti-MLM videos on it. And if that content does sound interesting to you, I would love it if you would consider subscribing, liking this video. All those things really help to support my channel, and I appreciate you so much for doing that. For today's video, I have another MLM horror stories for you. These are the personal experiences that people have sent in to me and given me permission to read for a video. If at any time you have your own MLM horror story that you would like to send in, the instructions for how to do that are in the description box of every single one of my videos. Very easy, just send me an email. When I get those emails, I put them into a special folder, and then I pick out a few of them when I'm sitting down to film these videos. So with that, let's get into today's stories. This story says, "Hey Hannah, sorry in advance if my story is long. Before I begin, I'd like to put a trigger warning for eating disorders as well as emotional abuse. This story concerns an old coworker of mine and being stuck in a toxic relationship. I actually started watching your videos when I broke up with this partner back in February, and I found your content really soothing. Your calm voice and rational thinking helped to keep me grounded during that tumultuous time, so I wanted to express my gratitude for your content. Thank you. And before I get into it, congrats on your pregnancy. I'm very happy you're back and feeling better." Me too. So nice to be back after a very unplanned 2-month break. Now, to begin with my story. Throughout the first year of the pandemic, I worked as a cashier at a grocery store in an upper middle class area of my city. I live in Ontario, Canada, for reference. I worked all throughout lockdown, mask mandates, and was promoted to assistant manager during this time. I had to enforce rules at our store, and the clientele were extremely rich, so enforcing rules led to a lot of abusive behavior from customers, and our management wouldn't protect us. Needless to say, working full-time at this job made my mental health suffer. I would come home shaking and crying because of how unbearable it was, and I'm a tough cookie if this gives you perspective on just how abysmal things were. I worked in the cashier front-end department, so I got the brunt of the treatment. Next to our department was the floral department, where people could buy pre-made or fresh arrangements of flowers as well as small decor pieces. In the floral department, there was a young woman working there, and for this story, I'll call her Lily. Lily was about 2 or 3 years older than me, so about 21 at the time. She had just returned to work from her maternity leave after having had a son. The father worked with us but wasn't really in the picture, and his behavior indicated he couldn't be trusted with his young son alone. He would also try and hit on women we worked with, me included, so naturally I felt somewhat protective towards Lily against this man and all of the things life was throwing at her. Lily lived at home with her father, and I followed her pregnancy journey and year on maternity leave on Instagram. We only really became friends after her return to work. During her pregnancy, Lily gained some weight. This is very normal, of course, but Lily was very petite, meaning that it may have been more noticeable on her extremely small frame, and I knew she was self-conscious. This may have been exacerbated by the fact that she was only 20 when she had her son, and all of her friends were out partying. I think she felt very alone. Over the course of her year off, I saw her slowly start to lose this weight through her Instagram posts. When she came back to work, she was almost exactly the same size as before. At this time, I was struggling with my own body image, and I confided in Lily about this and told her how it was affecting my relationship. My boyfriend would scream at me when I wouldn't eat or when I would SH, and he would act disgusted towards me. Due to the horrible treatment at work, I had started to eat my feelings, and this led to me gaining about 10 pounds during COVID. I struggle with endometriosis, scoliosis, and fibromyalgia, so exercise is often difficult for me. I'm not fat by any means, but just a little curvy. An extra 10 pounds on me was fairly noticeable. My boyfriend would push me to exercise with him even when I told him I wasn't comfortable doing it and when I was in pain. The stress of my job combined with the extra weight and treatment for my partner left my mental health in pieces. Needless to say, my confidence was almost non-existent and I felt like a monster. Lily knew all of these details through our chats, manning the front door and sanitizing carts together when we had a free moment. So just pausing your story right here, I can kind of get a sense as to where this is going. Just giving your whole setup and background of the mental state that you were in at this time. Your relationship isn't the healthiest, you're not feeling your healthiest, maybe some body confidence issues going on there, and then you have this coworker who has been gone for a while and she comes back with her pre-baby body, and I can only imagine that she's gonna have some kind of product or program to pitch you. And already we're recognizing that you are in this vulnerable state in your life. And I say this all the time on my channel, but vulnerable does not mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you are incapable. It doesn't mean that you are any less deserving of anything. Being vulnerable or having a vulnerability oftentimes is the result of your circumstances or your situation. And as you've already outlined and painted the picture for us, this is naturally and understandably a very vulnerable time in your life. Potentially, I'm assuming what you're going to say is that this is leading to you being more susceptible to being pitched and roped into an MLM business opportunity. A few months after Lily returned to work, I quit our store and found a work from home job in February of 2021. Becoming sedentary led to me becoming even more self-conscious and gaining about 5 extra pounds. My eating disorder was at its peak and my relationship was starting to become concerning. I started noticing Lily posting a lot of fitness photos on her Instagram. Here we go! And I was very proud of her. It seemed like she was finally feeling confident again after her baby. During her maternity leave, she had posted Arbonne photos, but after a while these posts were taken down and her Arbonne career seemed to be short-lived. I grew up with a mother who sold Arbonne, so I think because I knew all the products and the company in and out, it didn't seem as concerning to me. I had started to watch anti-MLM content, but at the time I knew very little compared to what I know now. I was unaware of the MLM cycle and how many people try multiple. Then the fitness posts started, including captions like "Ask me how I got my body back" and things of this nature, saying how thankful she was to have her programs. Let me guess. Beachbody, that's my guess here, or Optavia, but I think it's Beachbody. I knew she had been sucked into yet another MLM. Then one day I got the "Hey hun" message. She asked about how I had been doing at my new job, and it reminded me of how much I had missed working with her. Lily was a kind, beautiful, funny, and sweet person, and I remembered how much I loved working with her. I genuinely thought she was trying to rekindle our friendship because she would comment on my Instagram stories and ask how I was doing, and it all seemed so genuine. She would laugh at my self-deprecating comments about my weight and counter with her workout program pitch. Because of how protective I felt towards her, I said yes. I wanted to be her friend again as I was isolated, not only working from home, but having my toxic boyfriend as the only person I saw. She was a young single mother and I knew how horrible our job was, so I signed up for Beachbody. I thought that even if I didn't like it, I would be supporting my friend and I would get some workouts and protein powder out of it. What's the worst that could happen, right? Lily was elated by my support and I received my protein powder soon after. I tried one of the workout programs she suggested, but because, believe it or not, my coach was untrained, she suggested a workout that left me sobbing in pain and frustration. I talked to her, asking if the Beachbody app for the accountability groups had anything for people with eating disorders, and she said that people on there did have eating disorders, but they were not open about it. I felt a bit disappointed, but kept drinking my protein shakes and browsing the workout programs to see what I may be able to do with my physical limitations. I want to pause your story right here just to point out again something that you already mentioned, which is that when you join Beachbody, your title becomes coach. You become a Beachbody coach. But please keep in mind that this status of coach has absolutely nothing to do with your qualifications, your certifications, your experience. And it's simply just a title that they give you. You don't have to do anything to earn that title other than paying the startup fee and signing up for this MLM. So the title is very misleading because it makes you think that that person who is your coach and who's giving you fitness advice, workout recommendations, meal prep recommendations, supplement recommendations, puts you under the impression that that person is somehow qualified to be giving you those recommendations, when in reality, they're not. And that can have severe consequences for people like you in your situation who have these physical limitations, because the person who's supposed to be your coach isn't really tailoring anything for your personal situation. As you said, she suggested a workout that left you sobbing in pain and frustration, and that signals to me that it probably wasn't a workout that was meant for beginners. It probably wasn't the best option of a workout to get you started off on, especially when you do have these physical limitations that need to be accommodated. And these Beachbody programs, they're not one size fits all. Every program is not going to work very well for every single type of person and their abilities and their body types, but Beachbody reps do kind of tend to treat it that way. And as we're seeing here, that does have consequences, both physical and mental. The workouts can leave you in pain. I'm sure the frustration of that leaves you feeling really defeated as well. And I also don't love that she's admitting that they have these accountability groups, but people don't really talk about their eating disorders disorders. But at the same time, it doesn't really surprise me that that topic doesn't come up very often, because when you join these MLMs, especially something like Beachbody, which is kind of pitched as like a lifestyle program, you're given the supplements, the Shakeology, the workout programs. It's a lifestyle that you're taking on now. If you're doing Beachbody and you have this great new healthy and fit lifestyle that they promote, then theoretically everything should be great, right? You shouldn't be struggling with an eating disorder if you're doing Beachbody, because how wonderful it is. And if you're following the workout program and you're doing the meal plans and you're doing your self-development and you're attending all the Zoom calls, then everything should theoretically be great and you shouldn't be struggling with anything health or eating disorder related. But I would venture to say that the opposite is probably true, especially in Beachbody. The way I understand it is their meal plans are pretty restrictive, specifically the meal plans that come with those little containers. They have little colorful plastic containers and you're supposed to use them for like grains, vegetables, and protein, I believe. But it's like whatever you can fit into this container is what you're allowed to eat. And even by nature of following a program like that, something very restrictive and very structured, it can't work for everybody. Maybe some people thrive like that. I know I would not. That would make me feel like I was being way too restricted. I would find a program like that to be extremely limiting and hard to follow. And that would send me down this spiral of eating disorder-like tendencies where I'm being way over obsessive about what I'm eating, how much I'm eating, my portion sizes, the types of foods, all those things. So it's kind of this weird circumstance where it's like, oh, we're in Beachbody. People might have eating disorders, but we don't talk about them here. When I would argue that that type of community would lend itself to having more people actually struggling with their eating tendencies. Within 3 weeks of me signing up, she pitched coaching to me, telling me that I was seeing results, despite the fact that I had told her I was struggling and she knew nothing of my results. I only did one single workout and stopped because of how painful it was. The progress was non-existent. I turned her down, telling her that I was struggling, and she thankfully didn't push it. While this was going on, my boyfriend kept pushing me to do the workouts and continued to push until I did one that left me injured and sobbing. I felt like I was only worth something if I lost weight. Maybe if I lost weight and was successful at the programs, Lily would truly be my friend and my boyfriend would treat me better. Lily's check-ins became more sporadic and she dropped the facade of pretending to care about my life. She only ever messaged me about Beachbody, and I realized her messages were only love bombing in order to get me to sign up. One day I was charged nearly $200 on my credit card by Beachbody. I was financially struggling as most of my money went towards my boyfriend, so nearly $200 gone was detrimental. I messaged Lily about it and she said she would look into it for me. I was upset, but I tried to stay calm and polite. She told me it was a monthly charge for my protein powder and pre-workout. When she signed me up, neither she nor the Beachbody website said there would be monthly charges. I immediately contacted Beachbody and they refused to give me a refund. I was now $200 short and had a protein powder I didn't want. What this sounds like maybe she did is she signed you up to be a Beachbody preferred customer. My understanding is that is a monthly subscription service kind of deal. And so that would make sense that you saw this charge just show up on your credit card statement. That's automatically charging you for the protein powder and the pre-workout and just shipping it to your house without you really saying that you wanted it or needed it. It's one of those sneaky ways that they kind of hook you in. It's not okay that she didn't tell you that. You definitely should have been made aware that this was something that you were getting signed up for. You should have given your consent for that. But it's one of those sneaky ways that MLM companies suck money out of you, is they sign you up for these programs because they frame it in such a way like, well, if you're making a lifestyle change and you're joining Beachbody and you're doing our programs and taking our supplements, let's just make it easy. Let's just have it shipped to your door every month. And I think the preferred customer program, you do get the products at a little bit of a discount too. So definitely not okay that Lily signed you up for this without you knowing about it. But it also does make sense to me that this is an option for somebody to get sucked into. Lots of MLMs have programs kind of like this, whether they call it a preferred customer, a VIP customer, something of that nature, where you're on this auto ship program. And unfortunately, a lot of unsuspecting people get roped into it without knowing fully what they're signing up for. Lily apologized, saying that she didn't know about the charges. I don't believe that for a second. I started looking into Beachbody and found Illuminati's video on Beachbody entitled "Let's Puke Together." As somebody with an eating disorder, the "Let's Puke Together" slogan from Beachbody left me absolutely disgusted and horrified that I'd given them my money in an effort to get healthy and support a single mother. I won't lie when I say this was extremely triggering and led to a relapse. I canceled my account immediately. After this, I never heard from Lily again. Soon after, her Beachbody posts were gone. I personally have never heard this slogan. I want to go and watch this video now and see what that's all about. That would be absolutely shocking to me if that was like a Beachbody endorsed slogan or some kind of campaign that they had. Super not okay. And as you said, that could be very triggering for people who even just reading that title or watching the video, it could lead to, like you said, a relapse. And very interesting that you said that Lily never talked to you again. Convenient. Why would she if she's not making any money on you, I guess? And secondly, you said soon after her Beachbody posts were gone. And earlier in the story, you said that she was part of Arbonne too. So I'm kind of wondering if Lily is coming to this realization through multiple different MLM experiences that it is kind of hard to make money. We do see this a lot of people putting their all into their MLM and they're posting all about it. It's like all they can talk about, all they can promote. They make it their entire personality to be a part of their MLM. And then as soon as it starts to not work out, they just kind of fade into the background. They just stop posting as much, maybe go back and delete a few things. Because if it really was a lifestyle or a product that you loved and believed in and were committed to, then you would leave that stuff on your social media and you would continue to talk about it regardless of if you were making money or not. But the point of being in an MLM company is to make money. That's why people join. They want to make a commission, they want to build a team, they want to make money off of the people in their downlines. And if they're not seeing any results that they expected from that, then they're going to leave it behind and they're going to move on to something else. Not only did Lily target me due to my own vulnerabilities, but I now know that she was targeted due to hers. As a woman, I think we often yearn for the female support we are told that we need. Women supporting women is carefully woven into these pitches. It absolutely is. But when this is combined with the message that we're only worthy if we are thin and that we have to be able to do it all, this is an avenue for MLM companies to prey on us. Lily was a young single mother looking for community and an income, and I was an isolated teenager struggling with my body and emotional abuse. I try to have compassion for Lily now because I know she was preyed on, but I'll never forget how detrimental this was to me at one of my all-time lows. Thank you for reading and thank you for spreading the anti-MLM message so that hopefully more people can be spared from being preyed upon. I think that's a really great takeaway from your story and a very mature way to think about it, that even though your own vulnerabilities were preyed upon and this ended up being a really harmful experience for you personally, you're also able to recognize that Lily was probably in the same boat herself. She's a single young mom, like you said, looking for a community, looking for an income. Those were her own vulnerabilities that were probably preyed on by somebody else. The circumstances can be different. The vulnerabilities can look different from person to person. But one thing that these MLM companies and their reps are really good at is identifying those vulnerabilities and targeting their pitch and targeting what their MLM can offer to those individual circumstances. It's kind of fascinating when you think about it because in a way, everybody who gets involved with an MLM company, they are in some way both the predator and the prey. And I know those terms are really harsh, but that is what's going on here. In your case, somebody probably saw Lily's circumstances and pitched Beachbody to her. In that moment, she was the prey. Her vulnerabilities are being preyed on. So great, she joins and now she goes out there and looks for other people like you who also have vulnerabilities, and she preyed on those as well, making her the predator in that situation. And when you really think about it, this is exactly how MLM companies thrive. They rely on this constant chain of recruitment in order to survive. If the chain of recruitment is broken, if people stop joining the company and joining the business opportunity, then the entire pyramid crumbles. So that's not to say that people who join these companies are just these vicious, terrible people who are preying on other vulnerable women or things like that. It's just kind of the nature of the type of behavior you have to exhibit in order to be quote unquote successful. To be successful, you have to build a team. You have to recruit other people so that you can make money off of them. And how do you do that? You go out there, you search for people's vulnerabilities, and you pitch the opportunity as the solution. Oh, you're struggling with your eating disorder? Oh, you're not very comfortable in your relationship and you're feeling really vulnerable? Here, I've got this great workout program for you. Join, transform your body, transform your life. Everything will be fantastic if you just join Beachbody. That is very rarely the case, but that's kind of the hopes and dreams that people get sucked in on. So thank you for sending in this story and really highlighting this predator-prey dynamic. This story says, "Hey, Hannah, I've been watching your channel for a while now and I absolutely love your MLM horror stories series. I've told this story to friends and family and they've all found it both hilarious and unnerving at the same time, and I thought you might enjoy. It's more on the lighthearted side, so maybe it's less of a horror story, but it showcases the desperation of a Hun nonetheless. Feel free to keep my name in here, all other names have been changed." The story begins in a dental practice. Me and my family have been going to this dentist since I was a young teen, and I know everyone there quite well, just as they know me and my family. On the morning of a cleaning appointment, I was patiently waiting in the lobby for my name to be called to come back to the exam rooms. I was chatting with the receptionist about life updates, upcoming weekend plans, and other friendly chit-chat. Mid-conversation, she leaned towards the hallway and instantly threw her gaze down at her desk and tried to look busy. I turned to the hall to see what she saw, and there was Helen, the hygienist. She's a slightly older woman, probably in her 60s if I had to guess. She had the biggest grin on her face, which I thought was odd because in the almost decade that I'd been going there, I don't believe I've seen her do more than a smirk. So the grin was a little off-putting and more than a little creepy. "Hello, Stephanie. It's very nice to meet you. I'm Helen and I will be cleaning your teeth." I was taken aback at first because, hello, you've known me since I was a preteen. But instead, I just said, "Nice to meet you too," and moved on. She sees a lot of patients. I can't expect her to remember everyone, right? She walked me back to the exam room, took my purse to hang it up, and I sat down in the dentist's chair. She reclined the seat and instructed me to open my mouth to begin the cleaning. She then asks, "So are you eating all your fruits and veggies?" You know how when you go to the dentist and they ask you questions with their hands shoved in your mouth? Kind of hard to answer them with anything other than some kind of strained Wookiee impersonation. I grumbled what I thought was a clever response of, "Ugh." I don't know what she thought I said, but apparently she took it as a cue to give me a lesson on fruits and vegetables and how humans need them to be healthy. I couldn't help but think of how similar it sounded to when I told the kids I babysat when I wanted them to eat their own veggies. I started to tune her out and focus on the overhead light. She must have noticed I was losing interest in what she was saying because she grabbed my shoulder, horrifying grin still in place, and exclaimed, "Did you know millennials are the first generation not expected to outlive their parents? Do you know why that is?" I, being a millennial, have some experience in this area, so I said, Translation, "No, I don't know, but I can make an educated guess that it has something to do with the stress levels of our youth and the economic hardships we're facing on a day-to-day basis." This was apparently the wrong answer. The correct answer, according to Helenpedia, it's because they're all about instant gratification and will only eat fast food. Pretty sure that's wrong, but go off, sis. That's why I decided to start my own health and wellness business called Juice Plus. As if she had a stack of them hidden in her scrubs, she shoved a brochure into my hands. It was covered in people shoving lettuce into their mouths, people drinking some sort of green mush, and other healthy living stock images. I looked at it politely, holding it over my head since I was still reclined and my mouth still open. The whole thing felt so incredibly awkward. She goes on to talk about how she's made so much money so far, how many people she's helped, and how her company is single-handedly saving the lives of millennials and their children, and yada yada yada. Weird that she would feel the need to work at a dentist office when she was clearly a successful health coach, right? But I guess she's got to get those recruits somehow. The pitch continued for the entirety of the cleaning, and I was painfully aware of how trapped I was. Eventually, she finished the cleaning and announced that she was going to fetch the dentist. She left the room, and I was left reeling about what just happened and hoping I would somehow be able to avoid her for the rest of the appointment. This was seriously the most uncomfortable I have ever been at a dentist, and this is coming from someone who has had multiple dental surgeries. I can totally understand where you're coming from because, like you said, you are kind of trapped. You're there for an appointment, people are digging around in your mouth, you can't exactly go anywhere, you can't exactly respond or have a conversation when they're in your mouth. I hate when dentists do that, when they ask you questions and try and carry on a conversation, because what are you supposed to say? And in her case, I wonder if that's sort of working in her favor, that you can't talk back, you can't give her an actual response, because she's gonna continue on with her pitch and she's going to arrive at whatever conclusion she's gonna arrive at. So I can definitely understand how uncomfortable this would be, because you kind of have no choice but to just sit there and bear it. After a few minutes, the dentist walked in looking pretty annoyed as Helen followed in tow. This was not the procedure I was expecting, as normally once the hygienist is finished cleaning, the dentist takes over and the hygienist can be on their way to the next patient. So when she came back in the room with the same jigsaw smile, I was instantly back on edge. The dentist did her normal greetings, asked how my family was and all that that. Helen was standing in the corner looking antsy as a toddler with a secret they're not supposed to tell. I tried my best to pretend she wasn't there, and the dentist did the same. Once everything was done and the seat was brought to an upright position, Helen grabbed my bag off the hooks. I thought she was going to hand it to me, but instead she held on to it and continued on with her pitch. She was literally holding my purse hostage so she could ask me to join her business. I've always struggled with social anxiety and have a hard time advocating for myself, so I sat there and listened, nodding along and not wanting to be rude, but also hoping she would stop. She turned to her little dentist station with the goodie bags, added the toothbrush, toothpaste, and floss. She then leaves the room, still holding on to my purse, and gestures for me to follow her. My anxious little self obliged and stood up to see where she was going. She took me to the back office looking room, and I was like, great, either I join her team or my hygienist is going to murder me in her office. She reached into one of the desk drawers and pulled out a packet of Juice Plus fruit snacks, a new brochure, even though I was still holding the old one, and her business card. She made a great show of carefully placing each one into my purse. I really think you would be great at what I do. If you want a health coach, please give me a call. She finally handed me my purse back, and I booked it out of there without saying goodbye to anyone in the office. Free at last, except not even close. What? The next day, the experience was almost out of my mind when my cell phone began to ring with an unknown number. Me being the same socially anxious penguin as the day before, I ignored the call and let it go to voicemail. Can you guess who it was? If you said Helen, you would get a gold tooth. She began by mispronouncing my last name in a cheerful tone to emphasize how little she knew who she was talking to, and proceeded to repeat the entire lecture I had just heard not even 24 hours earlier, almost word for word. Halfway through the voicemail, I hung up the phone and really began to process how incredibly creepy this was. Not only was she willing to take advantage of a young, vulnerable patient in a standard cleaning appointment, but she then thought it was okay to call her up the next day and give the pitch again. Then it really hit me. She had my number. I never gave her my number, nor had I given her permission to call me. The only way she could have my number is if she went to the dentist database and taken my personal information for her own use. I'm sure this must have been illegal, but this is almost 10 years ago. I was maybe 19, and any sort of confrontation was terrifying to me, so I kept it to myself and hoped she wouldn't call again. Already there are so many things that are not okay with your story. The first one being that she made you feel trapped at your dentist appointment and she was pitching you. That in itself, unacceptable, not appropriate. But then she takes it even a step further with the whole holding your purse and taking you into an office thing. It's such a minor action that really speaks volumes because, like you said, she was kind of holding your personal belongings hostage, so you had no choice but to follow her and to listen to what she has to say. And then third and finally, using your personal information to contact you for purposes not related to the dental practice that she works in and not related to you being a patient of hers. That is super inappropriate, and I have to wonder if people in the dental office know what's going on and if she's been caught for this in the past. Because like you said, it must be illegal. There must be some rule saying that she can't go into the database and take people's personal information for her personal use. That can't be okay. That's definitely against some rule somewhere, and that's really not okay for her to be doing. I let a full week go by and I had all but forgotten about the incident when my phone rings again. Guess who? Hi, mispronunciation of my last name. I know you were interested in possibly joining me on my health journey, so I wanted you to know there is a conference coming up this weekend and I can come pick you up and take you there if you would like. I think you would really be great at what I do. Call me back. That's a big fat hell no for me. By this point, I was less creeped out and more angry than anything. And what does a socially anxious kid do when they're pissed? Delete the voicemail, angrily block the number, and dread the next dentist appointment, of course. I'm still angry at the lack of backbone I had back then, and I wish so hard I could redo it all. Flash forward another 6 months and I'm due for another cleaning. Like I said, I've been going to this dentist for years. I adored the entire staff and I would never want to leave them just because of a persistent hun. In the lobby waiting room, once again, I hear my name mispronounced in the way she does and my heart fills with dread. So many thoughts were going through my head, like what if she's upset and she's going to take it out on my teeth? Or worse, what if she tries to pitch me again? Instead, I get a strange feeling of deja vu. Hello, Stephanie. It's very nice to meet you. I'm Helen and I'll be cleaning your teeth today. She seriously didn't remember me. A wave of relief flooded over me. I was grateful for her forgetfulness, and so were my teeth. Luckily, during that appointment, she didn't mention the opportunity until the very end when she nonchalantly shoved another business card in my goodie bag and said, "I'm a health coach. Call me if you want help." And most importantly, she didn't smile once. My guess is that she must have had complaints from other patients about her pitches. There is no way I was the only one to experience this with her, and it was only a matter of time before she faced the repercussions. I still think about this incident and get grossed out more and more as I think about it. I am sickened that she would use her position of power to take advantage of people who are just trying to maintain good health. She retired a few years ago, and I'm still going strong with the same practice. From what I understand, she is no longer with Juice Plus either, so that's really a win all around, I guess. Thank you so much for reading my story. You are a light on the internet, and we need more people like you. Keep fighting the good fight. I think that is a fair assumption that other patients probably complained or reported this to somebody else in charge at the practice. Or if not, maybe the dentist caught on to it, or other people working at the practice caught on to it and started having their own complaints, because I can imagine that's not a very fun coworker to have, where you have Helen over here pitching every single patient who comes in, and it just makes for an uncomfortable situation and an uncomfortable environment that I'm sure isn't pleasant to work in either. I just want to reiterate how inappropriate all of her behavior is, and this unfortunately is not the first time that I've heard about somebody working in some kind of medical practice, dental practice, pitching on their patients, because if you really think about it, that's a huge potential client pool that you're picking from. If you're having however many new patients coming in every single day, that's a lot of new faces to pitch to. From the sound of it, she made people feel pretty uncomfortable, so I'm not really sure how effective this was for her. But from her perspective, I can see how she probably thought that was a huge advantage that she had, having all these new patients constantly coming in. Typically, people will take to social media to expand their recruitment pool, but hey, if at her workplace she's got all these new people constantly coming in, I'm not saying it's okay, I'm not saying it's acceptable or appropriate, but I can understand why she would view that group of people as a potential pool to recruit from. I'm sorry that you had to be put in this very uncomfortable situation. She's definitely in the wrong here. Her behavior is definitely inappropriate, and I want to make that very clear, but if nothing else, this does make for a very entertaining story, so thank you for sending it in. This one says, "Hi Hannah, I would like to keep my name confidential if you use this, just because I'd rather not have any confrontations with some MLM people that I know. I recently discovered your anti-MLM content after looking up Young Living. I was roped into buying some essential oils from them. I never realized how many MLMs I've purchased from in the past. I bought everything from leggings to candles to kitchenware to smoke alarms, some things more high pressure than others. But the one I think I feel ickiest about is the latest trend in the community, nutrition shops popping up everywhere. I'm talking 5 stores within 15 minutes of my home. I had no idea this was an Herbalife front the first time I walked into one. When they had started to develop this store in the plaza where my office was, I was fairly curious about it, and when the sign went up in the front window while they were under construction, I followed them on Instagram. Looking back, I realized that all of their posts were quite cookie cutter, featuring fit, pretty girls, usually in workout clothes, posing in front of generic Instagrammable decorations, balloons, whatever, holding teas and shakes in unlabeled cups. This particular store was called Niles Nutrition, and it seemed to be as unassuming as any little coffee shop might be. I thought they just had healthier drinks. When they opened, they brought free drinks to our office, which didn't taste bad, and some discount coupons for the shakes and drinks along with it. I met my colleague at the little shop the first time I went in, and we used the coupons. Upon first entering, I thought it was a little weird that they were pushing a deal of buying a shake and a tea. That's just not something I would want to drink together. Also, I didn't realize that it wasn't really a cafe. It had nothing other than tea and shakes. It looks like they have protein waffles now. We also had to fill out paperwork as it was a nutrition club, which I thought was odd. And in hindsight, probably shouldn't have given my name and email address. So we got the teas and shakes and tried to have the shakes as lunch. My friend and I both thought the shake tasted a little weird, chalky and powdery, but the liquid drink, I guess you could call it a tea, was okay. We did not finish the shakes. I think we went back one more time and got the tea drink again. But for a smallish tea, it was about $5 to $6. I can't remember exactly, and that's not really in my budget unless I love it, which I did not. At no point did I realize any evidence that it was an Herbalife front. Nothing in writing, no canisters sitting out on the prep counters, but something just really seemed weird, so I Googled it, and somebody had left an anti-MLM comment in the review section stating that it was Herbalife and a pyramid scheme. The owners responded, admitted that it was Herbalife, but gave the old "pyramid schemes are illegal, so it can't be a pyramid scheme" comeback. I did a little more digging and realized that Herbalife supplements aren't exactly healthy, and that the nutrition store craze is hitting other communities as well. I've also read that these cafe-type shops don't need to have health inspections, food licenses, etc. because they are operating under the guise of a club and not a restaurant. I would have to fact check that though. Yes, there are several very odd rules that Herbalife shops have to follow. One of them being that they cannot advertise the name of the company, Herbalife, anywhere within their store. They can't put it on the signage outside, they can't really have it displayed inside the store. Some of the clubs will have the canisters of Herbalife shake mix on the counter visible for a customer to see when they walk in. But if you're just walking by, or if you're just browsing on Facebook, or you're driving past the store, there's no hint whatsoever that this is an Herbalife front. And if I'm remembering correctly, that's because the people running the nutrition club are not technically employed by Herbalife. It's not like they're opening up a franchise location. What they're doing is they are independent contractors selling an Herbalife product, and it's their responsibility to open up their own shop and to run it under the specific set of rules that Herbalife gives them, but not claiming that name in any way, shape, or form. In fact, when I lived in Arizona, I lived right next to an Herbalife shop. So I can attest to the fact that when you're just walking by, it looks like any normal smoothie place or shake place or cafe. There would really be no way to tell that it's affiliated with Herbalife unless you go into the store and you see the product on the counter. And another thing that I've noticed, I never went into that location, but I've been told by other people who have gone in that they went in under the assumption that it was going to be like a smoothie cafe. But when the people behind the counter are making their shakes, there's no fresh fruit involved, no fresh vegetables, no produce. It's just these canisters of all these different supplements and mixes that they're mixing together, and they're serving it to you like that. And then they're charging like whatever you said, $5 or $6 a piece. Other people can also attest to the fact that the product isn't really that great. It's like you drink half of it and you're like, this is fine, but it's kind of chalky and weird. Probably wouldn't go back again. But this is the first account where I've been told that you have to give your name and email address and fill out paperwork and stuff. I don't know if that is standard in all of the Herbalife nutrition clubs. I really don't. I've never heard this before. Part of me is wondering if it's just something this location is doing so that they can get your contact info to potentially try and pitch or recruit you in the future. I'm not sure. This is very strange to me. I keep thinking about it and I'm like, I don't think anyone has ever told me that they had to give their information in order to be a customer at these nutrition clubs. Around the time I followed the nutrition store, which I later unfollowed, I got a follower who I now believe is the main Hun in my area. He and his wife constantly post about the dream house they were able to buy, their luxury SUV, and their many, many vacations that I see now are sadly at the expense of their downline. They never really say in their stories how they became successful or what the opportunity actually is, but it's obvious that they are trying to recruit even though the area is saturated with these stores. Sadly, there is one very near the local college campus where they are probably recruiting college kids. My daughter told me that a girl with disabilities she knew from high school was working at a nutrition club and got sucked into selling. My daughter sent her something to gently show that this was an MLM, and she responded with a typical haters response. The haters response specifically has to do with the fact that like, oh, if you're going against my MLM or you're not supportive of it or you're trying to get me out of it, then you must be a hater. You must not support me and not want to see me succeed. That's a very typical MLM rep mentality to have because they are told and conditioned that if you just work hard enough, you'll see all this success and wealth and money, and anybody who disagrees with you or who tries to go against you, they're just a hater. The other argument that you mentioned earlier about it can't be a pyramid scheme because those are illegal is also so common and also such a fallacy. It is true that pyramid schemes are illegal, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. You know what else is illegal? Selling illicit drugs, murder, stealing. Just because something is illegal doesn't mean it just doesn't happen at all. But the thing with these MLMs is that they ride that line of legality so finely that it really would take somebody suing the company, taking them to court, really digging into every single detail to figure out if it is a true pyramid scheme under the law or not. And there's so many legal loopholes that they take advantage of. And quite honestly, there's just not the resources to do that for every single company. Not every single company can be taken and investigated deeply. There's just not enough time or money or manpower for that. So that's why the MLM companies kind of fly under the radar for as long as they do. And believe it or not, there have been MLM companies that have been taken down for being a pyramid scheme. Advocare is one of them. So it's funny that both of these rebuttals came up in your story, the pyramid schemes are illegal and the hater response, because they're so typical. They are so common. Those are the most popular rebuttals that people in MLMs will use to defend themselves against being a pyramid scheme. I know all MLMs are predatory, but this seems especially gross given that the shop owners are probably putting the money down to renovate, equip, and decorate the stores and signing multi-year leases in high-rent strip plaza locations on top of buying a bunch of product. My family had a family business, a restaurant, for 18 years, and I currently own a landscaping business on top of having a regular 9-to-5 job as an accountant. And let me tell you that when the Huns say things like, I'm the CEO of my own business and I can make my own hours and take weeks off of work, I just want to laugh, because when you are the CEO of your own business, you're most likely in some way working 24/7 and not in pockets of time. Also, you are in competition with other businesses of the like, not recruiting people to do the same exact work that you were doing in the same exact client base. Sorry for the length of this. I just thought maybe it was worth a mention or a deep dive. I would love to see someone with your expertise show us what's really going on behind the scenes at these nutrition stores. Thanks for your investigations into these MLMs and your content. And I think a deep dive into the MLM Herbalife Club specifically would be very interesting. I haven't done that yet. Quite honestly, at this point, they confuse me. I'm very confused by them. I do need to take a deep dive on my own and really figure out the ins and outs of how these things operate, because it's a mystery to me. I cannot possibly see how they're profitable, because typically one of the draws to joining an MLM company is that you don't have a physical location to pay for. You're able to do it from the comfort of your home or from your phone. So I've always been very perplexed about this whole idea of opening up an Herbalife shop without any advertising that you're affiliated with Herbalife in any kind of way, and somehow that makes you money. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I'll have to figure it out and report back to you. But I appreciate your story, and I wanted to share this one because it does highlight that nutrition clubs are everywhere. There's one even a few miles away from where I live, and we drove by it one time, and AJ was like, that kind of gives me Herbalife vibes. One of the dead giveaway signs is if they have the word nutrition in the name. Another dead giveaway is if their windows are tinted or blacked out so you can't look inside. A third giveaway is if they have a Facebook page, and if the photos on that Facebook page feature these crazy colored looking drinks. I will find some pictures of these drinks and I will insert them right here, but they're always the most insane colors. They're like every color of the rainbow. They're always served in a clear cup. They're always served with some kind of sticker on the outside with the club's name and logo on them. And those are kind of the three telltale signs, where if I'm driving by and it says nutrition on the outside and it looks kind of sketchy and blacked out, and then I can find evidence on Facebook of these really crazy looking teas, congratulations, probably an Herbalife front. Which is kind of crazy and kind of sneaky, because even if you are anti-MLM or you commit yourself to not supporting these companies, this is definitely a type of business that you risk just walking into one day and having no idea what you're actually supporting. And on second thought now, actually, as I said earlier, I'm like, how do these places make money? How is this profitable? Because they're not upfront that it is Herbalife. Maybe that's it. Maybe they kind of rely on people just walking in off the street, not having any idea what the product is or what they're supporting, because if they did know it was Herbalife, they wouldn't go in and they would walk right by. So now, maybe in hindsight, that's what's going on. Perhaps for a company like Herbalife that has such a bad reputation and has been around for so long, the nutrition clubs in these shops are the way to go, because you're relying on the fact that people don't really know what they're buying when they buy it. Definitely some food for thought. I will consider making this a deep dive video in the future. I think that would be very interesting to kind of figure out how these things operate. So thank you for sending in your story. This story says, hello Hannah, I stumbled upon your channel and I figured I had to share my MLM horror story. Please keep my identity confidential. Also, please forgive any grammar mistakes as English isn't my first language. Some context to the story. This story happened almost 15 years ago in the Canadian province of Quebec. I was an 18-year-old girl. In the weeks prior to the start of this story, story, my father passed away from cancer after a short battle. I'm very sorry for your loss. My mother, younger sister, and I had to sell the family house and move to an apartment because we couldn't keep it. My mother was working as a cleaning lady, and my father, before his passing away, was working in a factory, so we were in the lower class. At that point in time, both my sister and I had a job at one of the 2 local fast food establishments. Our store manager, knowing the struggle we were going through, told us she had given our name to get a free manicure by one of her friends. We thought, how cool, as our family was never able to afford such a thing, and we were pleased to get this experience free of charge. The day of the manicure came, and my sister and I both went to this lady's house. Turns out it isn't a manicure, more of a do-it-yourself hand treatment with a Mary Kay hun. Let's call her Melinda. Keep in mind, at that point, I have no idea, nor my sister, what Mary Kay is, and no idea whatsoever what an MLM is. During all the care she gave us, she tried to recruit us both. My sister was in high school and was a minor, 17, and she rapidly declined anyway since she had no time for this. But she managed to recruit me because at that time I didn't know better. She sold me on that dream that I will be able to help provide for my family, that I will be able to keep my current job and still be able to go to school, that I would be able to work whenever I want, wherever I want. The products sell themselves. They are that good, she said. And since my family was in a precarious situation already, I wanted to help. I needed to help because nobody else would. Melinda, approximately 30 years old, herself was in a precarious situation, just having divorced and having 3 kids to take care of. I was also her first recruit. Fast forward a couple of days and Melinda brings me, her recruit, to meet her upline. Let's call her Henrietta, approximately 60 years old, to answer all the questions that I may have. At some point while Henrietta was explaining the structure, I let it slip that this looked a lot like a pyramid scheme. My father, even with his lack of education, had always told me if something looks too good to be true, it probably is. Ask questions. Henrietta quickly dismissed my concerns since there's no way it's a pyramid scheme since those are illegal. Again, this is coming up. And being a naive 18-year-old needing money to help my family, I brushed this off under the rug. Henrietta invited me to her place the next day in the early afternoon to celebrate me becoming an entrepreneur and to help me out getting the best inventory. And isn't it funny that you, being a young 18-year-old, you're attending this and you're kind of listening to how it works and you're like, sounds like a pyramid scheme to me. That should say a lot, even not having any idea what an MLM is or how the business model works. But when you're starting to learn about it, it's ringing bells as to being a pyramid scheme. Not a good sign. You should definitely listen to your gut in that situation. The next day, I go to her house in the town over. She welcomed me warmly and asked if I ever had a mimosa. I told her no, that in fact I had never even heard of what that was. So she quickly goes to her kitchen and made me one and one for herself. The legal drinking age in Quebec is 18. I thought nothing of it at the time, but now I can see how strange this was, and I still strongly believe she made them with vodka and not sparkling wine, or at least mine. Probably to help me be more compliant and to not ask too many questions. That's messed up. This is the first time I'm hearing this of where it's like a one-on-one situation where she's getting you to drink before explaining whatever she's going to explain or pitching whatever she's going to pitch. This is more commonly seen when you're going to like a public MLM presentation. Sometimes they'll host these big events like everyone come together in a conference room, listen to our pitch, hear about our opportunity, but there's lots of people in attendance and sometimes there's refreshments served, lots of times alcoholic refreshments, interestingly enough. This feels a little bit icky to me, being that you are so young even though you're legally drinking age, and she's offering you alcohol before pitching you whatever she's going to pitch. I think that that is super messed up, kind of lowering your inhibitions, lowering the likelihood that you will question things or ask questions or be resistant to whatever she has to offer. I think that is very manipulative. She then brought me to her office, which was just a room in her basement with shelves full of Mary Kay products. She brought out a catalog so we could look to get my inventory started. At some point, she asked me what my budget was to order products. I answered that I hadn't really thought about it and I did not have that much money to invest. She was a little surprised by my answer and then proceeded to ask if I had a credit card, if I thought to get a loan to pay for my inventory, or if there was any inheritance coming my way. Then she told me that there was no way to order less than $1,000 because it was the minimum order allowed by Mary Kay for new consultants. I don't believe it was or is true. So I had to order at least $1,000 as a new consultant, but I would receive a Mary Kay luggage set as a welcome gift, and that I would look so professional traveling with them. I am not confident that there is any minimum order. Yeah, so I just looked it up and it says that there are quotas, there are minimums, but it's $200 wholesale or $400 retail. Who's to say if this has changed, but I find it very unrealistic that the minimum would be $1,000. MLM companies these days very rarely have a super high startup cost, more than a few $100s, because that's not very accessible for the average person. And of course, they want as many people as possible to join, so they're not going to make that threshold to join so high that it's unattainable for most people. And I think it would be fair to assume that maybe she just said that it was $1,000 because you wouldn't know any better and you would just go ahead and pay it. I think it is much more likely that she got some sort of benefit if you purchased $1,000 worth of product to start off with. I think that probably came out to be a much better deal for her in the long run, and so that's why she was pitching it to you, as you have to do it that way. So, not knowing any better, I took out a loan and I ordered the amount she told me. I was able to select products I thought would be easier to sell and not require having a variety of the same thing in many different colors, like makeup. So, I mostly had skincare products along with the cheapest portable mirror and other things consultants need and use, along with 2 horrible looking luggage cases. About a week later, I was invited by Henrietta to the local Mary Kay Hun meetup. There I was with mostly middle-aged women. Melinda and I were among the youngest. I was told this meeting was about how to improve your sale of the product. Interestingly enough, almost no word about the product was said that night, but there was a lot said about how to recruit people to join. And that is pretty much where it clicked for me. Something was very wrong and I knew I should leave this company. Not looking for a fight and having a lot to deal with at that moment, I gently excused myself from the next couple of meetings they had during the following weeks. At some point, Melinda called me to know how everything was going for me, both personally and business-wise. I then told her Mary Kay wasn't really working for me and I was thinking about quitting. She was very nice and understandable. She never tried to make me stay or anything. She wished me the best and we simply hung up. However, a couple of days later, I received a not-so-nice call from Henrietta. She wanted to know why I was giving up. So I answered that I had a lot to deal with: school, work, family, being a young adult, etc. And it wasn't really working for me. She then proceeded to tell me that it was my own fault if my business was failing and I should just try harder. I then proceeded to tell her that she hadn't changed my mind about this and I was still quitting. I then asked if there was any way for me to send back my unsold product and was rapidly told that it was mine and that there was no buyback program. It's been 15 years since, and I still believe that this was a lie. So I did just look it up because I'm also not familiar if Mary Kay has a buyback policy, but apparently they do. This is right from the Mary Kay's frequently asked questions section on their website. It says, any Mary Kay independent beauty consultant who terminates her contractual relationship with the company may return unsold products in original and unused condition, and these will be repurchased by the company per the terms of the independent beauty consultant agreement at 90% of her original net cost. So Mary Kay does in fact have a buyback policy. You're not going to get 100% refund, but you can send back your unused and unsold product if you decide to quit. How convenient that she just straight up lied to you and said, oh no, we don't have a buyback policy. That's yours to keep. I wonder if it would hinder her as your upline if you did return that inventory. That's an interesting question too. So for the next year or so, I gave away various Mary Kay products as gifts. Birthday, Christmas, every holiday was a reason to get rid of those overpriced, weird-smelling products that were often worse than the cheapest thing you could grab at the drugstore. I may have lost $1,000, but got a great life lesson. There is no easy way to make money. I now run away from any Hun trying to sell me any product and to try to educate people on the predatory nature of MLMs. Melinda isn't a Hun anymore. She stayed in Mary Kay for almost 2 years, but never managed to make any real money. I saw her 3 to 4 years ago while visiting my mom, and we had a chat. She was truly sorry to have brought me into this, but she honestly thought that she was giving the opportunity to people to improve their lives, and I truly believe she didn't know better. She also learned the hard way that nobody was gaining anything being part of an MLM. Thank you for your content and keep up the good work. I'm glad that you were able to catch up with her after the fact and that she was able to admit, like, I'm sorry that I roped you into this. I didn't really know what I was doing. I thought I was giving you a good opportunity, because that is the common case. I would go as far to say that most people who join an MLM truly don't understand the inner workings of it. And when they are pitching it to people, they truly do believe in their heart that it is a good opportunity and that you are providing somebody with something positive. Of course, as with any industry, there are a few bad bad apples who know exactly what they're doing and they are working that manipulation to their advantage. But I do believe that most people are good and most people have good intentions. And their goal is not to rope you into an opportunity where they know you're going to lose a ton of money. They genuinely believe that they're offering you something where you can make money and where you can be successful. And it's oftentimes not until much later that they realize exactly how the business model was designed to work. I'm sorry to hear that you had to lose $1,000, but this is a really great, valuable lesson, and I appreciate you taking the time to write out this story and to share your experience so that we can put it out there and hopefully other people can avoid falling victim to this too and losing a bunch of money as well. And with that, my friends, that's all the stories I have for you for this MLM horror stories video. Again, if you have your own you would like to send in and you think would be a great fit for these videos, the instructions for how to do that are in the description box down below. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next one real soon.